You're calling from a 518 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from? We're going to race through these calls, and then we got to wrap up.
Hey, Michael, can you hear me?
Dave from Jamaica. I can always hear you.
Oh, cool. All right then. Since we're speeding it up, guys, we've been getting a lot of depressing stories and stuff, so I'll try avoid some of that.
Okay.
I'll jump right into it. So, let's say Democratic primary is happening, and I figure you're going to have a lot of candidates. So the neo-libs will be most of them, and they will eat up each other's food. So Bernie slips in and wins the primary.
In 2020,
and they're in a debate.
About.
Yeah. So Bernie wins the primary, and he goes through. And there's a foreign policy debate. What are the answers you would like to see to the foreign policy questions to get the more squishy voters who don't really, they kind of have the status quo in their brains when it comes to, well, we need borders, that type of stuff. How do you get those type of guys?
Well, borders is a specific. Borders is a specific. Actually, Matt, did you have something you wanted to jump in there?
Well, I was going to question how much people really vote based on foreign policy.
I don't think. Well, that's kind of what I was going to say. I don't think people vote. I think that first, people don't vote on foreign policy very much at all, and secondly, two things. I think one, you might be surprised at how relatively receptive more people are to. And I agree. Don't worry about that. Being anti-imperial is more important than being anti-interventionist. Is a more full critique. But that being said, it's a better default position than being interventionist, and I think there's a lot of receptivity to that. And I do think that's actually arguably an area where there's more empirical evidence that people bought Trump's lies about that than the economic stuff. So I don't think that there's a big appetite for interventionism at all. As far as the border stuff goes, I think it's really simple. People who are freaked out about the border, whatever that percentage is that still supports ICE, they're not going to vote for a Democrat. No matter how conservative or liberal, they're gone. The job is you beat them. That's where Sam's right. That's where it's a zero-sum game. That's where those people need to be crushed and destroyed politically. On the other hand, as I say, do I ultimately want to get rid of borders? Yes. That's my political project in the long term. In the short term, it's very easy to say we're still going to have borders, but they're going to be demilitarized, and we're not going to kidnap children, and we're not going to, and we're going to once again return to being in accordance with international law on refugees and all these other things. And if you want that, then you support me. If you oppose that, if you're voting on kidnapping children, go fuck yourself. You're not my candidate. I'm not your candidate. Goodbye.
All right. More question to you guys personally, since I'm being super hopeful. Let's say we get more left, get some serious power in the world, right? How do we deal with like bad actors? Let's say kind of like a Russia that meddles, because they're basically super capitalists now. What would be a smart way to deal with them? Because as you were talking earlier in the show, how economic sanctions is really violence against the populace. But in other words, how do you deal with bad foreign actors from a leftist perspective?
I think I'd personally just say you mainly go after the capital interests behind those, because I don't think it's necessarily nationalist. I think the Russian government, to the extent it hacked us, hacked us for a specific oligarchic class, and you basically attack their power. And I think generally, if with regards to Russia attacking us, if we did things like paper ballots and expanded education and got rid of media concentration and monopoly and a lot of different things, we wouldn't have anything to worry about from Vladimir Putin.
If we had national automatic voting, all of the things Matt mentioned, and our foreign policy play was guess what? The next wave of Paradise and Panama Papers we're publishing as the United States government.
As the IRS.
Yeah, as the IRS. There you go. David, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean...
No, let David respond. Let David respond. Oh, sorry. Sorry, David. My bad. No, I know, but that's Dave from Jamaica.
Sorry.
David Griscom.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is also regarding Russia and election interference, I mean, there's also been a international culture over the past few years of sort of messing around, especially using through the internet and using like computer technology to mess around with other countries, including election meddling and things like that. So basically, there's basically been a non-norm set in a kind of competition between like global powers, and I just feel like this most recent attack in the U.S. is definitely an interesting case, and it's important that we don't conflate everything together when we talk about Russia interference in the election, right? So it's like there's like attacks on voting machines, right, which that has like very specific danger to our democracy.
Or if they hacked
then there's
Clinton's info and changed their internal voter information for their voter models. That's a big deal.
And that would definitely, and then and then there's also the claims of Russian bots on Twitter and Facebook, and
that stuff gets more silly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So we don't conflate these things, because it's very important that we're talking about these quickly. Look, the United States defense budget is absolutely huge, and at a certain point, if like we're leaving such things so vulnerable, I mean that's something that we really need to reform internally. To be able to defend against those kinds of attacks, because I don't think it's that outlandish.
And also, I would say too, and I've said this before, but yes, a real left internationalist government, even with social democratic variety, would say, okay, as hypocritical and as flawed and as made up as law is, there was a period of time where in some ways, in limited successful ways, very limited, but still with some actual success, we had some architecture of international norms, which have been destroyed by things like the Bush administration's torture regime. You would say, let's get back in accordance with those things, like we're going to follow Geneva, we're not going to torture people, as an example. And then you would say, all of the major stakeholders have to meet and determine what the rules of the road are for computer hack, cybersecurity, for drones. I mean, there's a whole other set of essentially warfare and national security questions, which have both not been in any way brought into real oversight in the United States, let alone there are no international norms established around. So I think that's the kind of forward-looking, strategic, humanitarian left perspective as well. Thanks, brother. I'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
Later, man.
Later. Thank you.